K Bullets YouTube channel.
Hurry up, now tell us why you're here.
Jimmy Cables retired from Piston Cup racing before this race. And here is what Jimmy Cables had to say. But who will replace him? Flip Dover will be replacing Jimmy Cables in the number 00. And he will be a new rookie racing in the Piston Cup. Jimmy Cables is not the only car retiring, as Chip Gearings is now out because he had a career-ending crash in practice. And now Garrison Motorsports is scrambling to replace him. But this replacement racer is Chris Roman, who will replace Chip Gearings and will also be a new rookie racing in the Piston Cup. But there's more rookies, as Jonas Carvers will also be a new rookie racing in the Piston Cup. Same with Herb Kerbler, replacing Todd Marcus and Tommy Highbanks. Eric Breaker is also a new rookie racing in the Piston Cup in the number 5 Synergy car. And Cam Spinner is also another new rookie racing in the Piston Cup, replacing Terry Cargus. And Steve Slick LePage is another new rookie. Kevin Carvick has a new look. Now, he is a next generation racer, making him the second stock car to become a next generation racer. Now, onto the starting grid, where Jackson Storm obviously starts at pole position with H.J. Hollis, who's outside. Row 2 has Ed Trunkin and new rookie Jonas Carvers. Now onto row 3, where JP Drive will be starting alongside Chris Roman, a new rookie. Now onto row 4, where JD McPillar will be starting alongside Ryan Inside Laney. And row 5 has Harvey Broadcap starting alongside Flipped Over, also making his very first Piston Cup start. Row 6 has Pitbull Speed Racer starting alongside Nick Shift. I wonder how they'll do this race. Now on to row 7, where we've got 2 purple cars, Barry DePeto and Dan Garcia. Row 8 has 2 rookies, Cam Spinner and Steve Slick LePage, hoping to make a good impression in their debut. Row 9 has Kevin Carvick making his first start as a next generation racer, and Jim Reverick, who's outside. Row 10 has Green Bean Carafine and Bubba Wheelhouse to his outside. Row 11 has Tim Treadless and Aaron Clocker. I wonder how they'll do this race. Now on to row 12, where Richie Gunzip will be starting alongside Lightning McQueen, the first stock car in this lineup today. Row 13 has Eric Breaker and Cal Weathers to his outside. Now on to row 14, where Herb Kerbler will be starting alongside Bobby Swift. And now on to row 15, we have 2 stock cars on the row, James Garrison and Tony Gasworth. I wonder how they'll do this race. Row 16 has Brick Yardley and Rev Rodages to his outside. I wonder how they'll do this race. Row 17 has Ricky Axel and Darren Ledfoot, who both thought they'd do better in qualifying. Row 18 has Jamarcus Capehart and Brian Sparks, both happy to qualify for this race. Row 19 has Paunchy Wipeout and Murray Clutchburn, who has still avoided failing to qualify for any race. Row 20 has Arthur Carstro and Reb Meeker to his outside. I wonder how they'll do this race. Row 21 has Dino Draftsky and Ralph Carlo. And starting in 43rd is Buck Beeringly, who was very lucky to qualify for this race, as these 7 cars, among many others who failed to qualify, came close to beating him. Jackson Storm will lead the first 50 laps of the race before Lightning McQueen would take the lead from him, leading off of pit cycles. But after the pit stops were done, Jackson Storm would retake the lead, leading another 50 laps. But Ryan Inside Laney would take the lead off of pit cycles, but on lap 103, JP Drive would take the lead, and he would lead for 9 laps. But Green Bean Carafine would be 11th as of lap 112, where he would wreck Kevin Carvick. Why Green Bean Carafine? Jackson Storm would take the lead on lap 113 and lead for 50 more laps before JP Drive would take the lead from him, leading for 6 more laps before Jackson Storm would take the lead once again, leading for 10 more laps. But Tony Gasworth would be out on lap 179 because of an engine failure. After the restart, H.J. Hollis would take the lead. He would only lead for a few yards because JP Drive would take the lead from him, leading the field into lap 181. But then, Green Bean Carafine would be 17th as of lap 181, where he wrecks James Garrison, Jamarcus Capehart, and Arthur Carstro. Why, Green Bean Carfine? And Jackson Storm would take the lead once again, leading until lap 185, where JP Drive would take the lead from him. He would lead on just that lap because Pitbull Speed Racer would be 21st as of lap 185, where he would wreck Green Bean Carfine. I hope he doesn't turn out like another green car that we know and definitely don't like. But Pitbull Speed Racer is now down 3 laps because of repairs that his pit crew made. Jackson Storm would take the lead after the restart and lead until lap 216, where JP Drive would take the lead once again, leading for 9 more laps until lap 225, where Jackson Storm would take the lead once again, leading all the way until lap 246. Pitbull Speed Racer would get one of his laps back on lap 245. Dan Garcia would take the lead on lap 246 off of pit cycles, but after the pit stops were done, Jackson Storm would take the lead for 50 more laps. This might seem normal, but over the start-finish line, JP Drive would take the lead on lap 297, stopping Jackson Storm from leading 51 laps in a row. JP Drive would stay in the lead for 27 laps before losing the lead to, you guessed it, Jackson Storm, who would lead until lap 327, leading for 3 more laps before Lightning McQueen would pass him and lead for a few yards. Meanwhile, Pitbull Speed Racer got 1 more of his laps back, and now he's only 1 lap down. And then Jackson Storm retakes the lead later in lap 327, leading for 2 more laps before on lap 329, JP Drive would take the lead. But on lap 363, Jackson Storm would retake the lead again, leading all the way until lap 413, where Cam Spinner would pass him for the lead, leading his first 2 Piston Cup laps, and JP Drive would take the lead once again on lap 414. But 4 laps later, Jackson Storm would be back in the lead. But he would lose the lead on lap 442 to JP Drive, who would lead the final 8 laps of the race. On the final lap, Pitbull Speed Racer would be back on the lead lap. But with only a few yards to go, Jackson Storm would take the lead once again and go on to win the 2016 Bumper Safe Gears and Glory 450. JP Drive would finish 2nd this race, Barry DePedal would finish 3rd this race, Lightning McQueen 4th, Herb Kerbler 5th, Ryan Inside Laney 6th, Dan Garcia 7th, HJ Hollis 8th, Tim Treadless 9th, and JD McPillar rounding out the top 10. Pitbull Speed Racer would be the last car to finish on the lead lap this race, finishing 37th. And then Kick Hicks would say this to Jackson Storm, who would then reply with this in the interview that they were having. Lightning McQueen is in the background reacting to this interview, saying, "You gotta be kidding me." And then a reporter is asking Lightning McQueen's team owners, Rusty and Dusty, this question. Same with this other reporter, which I don't have a picture of. And another reporter asked, "Is Lightning McQueen prepared to retire?" And then Lightning McQueen says this to the reporters, saying that it's just a slump. We'll get him next week. And then he asks reporters to not ask him any more questions. And then this reporter, that I only have half an image of, asks Lightning McQueen this question about Cal Weathers' retirement from the Piston Cup. And then Lightning McQueen says, "Wait, what?" And then another RSN reporter said that Cal Weathers is hanging up his light years. Lightning McQueen says, no comment about that either. And then an RSN reporter tries to continue to ask Lightning McQueen questions. Oh, I forgot to mention this earlier, but Cal Weathers will be retiring from Piston Cup racing. And then Lightning McQueen called out to Cal Weathers as he was getting in the hauler. Cal Weathers said this about his retirement, and then said, "We had some good times together. I'm gonna miss that the most, I think." And then Lightning McQueen replies, "Yeah." But this is not the only conversation after the race, as Pitbull Speed Racer congratulates JP Drive for his good race. Pitbull Speed Racer wasn't the only one congratulating JP Drive, as JP's own sponsor, Apple, had this to say about their racer's performance. Now, onto the race results, where we already know the top 10 of the race, as I mentioned that earlier. with Lightning McQueen being the only non-Next Generation racer to finish in the top 10. Chris Roman, in his very first Piston Cup start, finishes 11th, the same as his number. Harvey Rodcap, Nick Schiff, Jim Reverick, and Bubba Wheelhouse round out the top 15, with Eric Breaker finishing 16th in his very first start. Richie Gunzik, Cam Spinner, Jonas Carvers, and Steve Slick LePage round out the top 20, with Aaron Clocker earning 100 points for finishing 21st this race. Reb Meeker is the next stock car, finishing 22nd this race, followed by Brian Sparks, Rev Rodages, and Ed Trunkin. Flipped Over is the worst performing Next Generation racer that wasn't Pitbull Speed Racer, finishing 26th. Cal Weathers finishes 27th in his final Piston Cup race. Murray Clutchburn, Dino Draftsky, Ralph Carlo, Ricky Axel, Buck Beeringly, Bobby Swift, Rick Yardley, Darren Leadfoot, and Paunchy Wipeout all finish on the lead lap because there weren't very many cautions this race. Pitbull Speed Racer finishes 37th as a result of getting back on the lead lap on the final lap, and the rest of the cars were pretty much all wrecked out by Green Bean Car Fiend. Except Tony Gaswood and himself. Now here's the top 20 in points, where Lightning McQueen is still first and Cal Weathers is still second. But Tim Treadless goes all the way up to third because of team points. Flipped Over is 5th in points, taking over from Jimmy Cables. Harvey Rodcap, Ed Trunkin, Aaron Clocker, and JD McPillar are in the top 10, being Next Generation racers. Brickyard leads 6th, of course, as a stock car. Rep Meeker is on the outside looking in, being 11th in points, ahead of Ryan Inside Laney, James Gearson, Dan Garcia, and Ricky Axel, all in the top 15. Murray Clutchburn's only so high in points because other racers aren't consistently qualifying, but he is. Kevin Carvick is 17th in points. Don't forget, he's been out for multiple races. Chris Roman, Ralph Carlo, and Martin Carrix Jr. round out the top 20, with Jonas Carvers being 40 points behind in 21st.
Remember to press the notifications button, which goes ring, ring, ring after you press it. And lightning strikes back, and that's as if you subscribed, of course. And thank you for watching this entire video.
Over the past few days, I've received some comments about me not uploading, but that's because I've been busy, and I'm not always well either to record. Because if I'm not well, I can't record like this. I will sound very different. And many of you might already know, those who follow the channel for a longer period of time, would know that my throat has gotten sore sometimes, which would make it very hard to yell into the microphone like I do for these videos. But if Dynaco does not find a replacement racer for Cal Weathers for the next race, that race will be the first race since 1962 that did not have a Dynaco racer. You'll be able to know if this happens when I release the next video, the 26th race of the 2016 Piston Cup season, which will hopefully be coming out soon enough. Unfortunately, the 2022 Russian invasion of Ukraine is still going on. Over 3 years later, the Ukrainian people just want to live in peace and have freedom. We here at the K.A. Bullets Piston Cup YouTube channel stand with Ukraine in their struggle against Vladimir Putin's tyranny and recognize Ukraine's true borders as shown by this map, which shows their true borders. Slava Ukraini! Heroyam slava! Nechai Shvisia Darovatsya! Ukraini Permoha! Glory to Ukraine! Glory to the heroes! May Ukraine be granted victory very soon. I've found a few comments saying that the war is over. It's not. Go check the news. The war is unfortunately still ongoing.